So now we're going to start hearing more and more people coming out and claim that they were naive, they didn't know better, they were fooled. Bitcoin was misrepresented. Yeah, it's going to be a Bitcoin Trojan horse. I've always said that. It's the beta test coin. It always was. But it was really easy to figure out. I mean, if you're silly enough to look at the idea that, oh, well, it's worth more on the market, so it must be better. Well, that's pretty foolish and simplistic. You know, there was a time people thought that Blockbuster was a better idea than Netflix because it was worth more. You know how silly that was. That's not what works, guys. For me, it was real easy. I took the metrics. The metrics for XRP looked better than the metrics and the performance than they did for Bitcoin. And then I put it to the test. I ran a transaction on both of them, and it didn't even pass the smell test. It was so obvious. And with everything that I read about XRP, its settlement speed, its finality, the fact that you don't have to mine it, it just made a lot more sense. Plus, you look at the team behind it, the company behind it, the relationships that they had. I mean, they were meeting with the Fed every week. Who does that, right? And it just didn't, you know, for me, it was just obvious. It was a new and improved version of Swift on more advanced technology that could work globally and instantly. That made more sense to me. That was something we did not have, and we have it now with XRP. And as soon as we get that Clarity Act done, nobody's going to be running to try to say, hey, I got to run my stuff on Bitcoin. No, that software does not, or that software doesn't work for this application. Global Digital Bridge Currency. You know, it doesn't work for that. It doesn't even work for Taco Stand. All right. It doesn't even work for what they like to say. It's a store of value. Well, look at where it was a year ago and look at where it is today. You tell me how much value it's stored. I've seen that story many times with Bitcoin. It's always been an obvious Trojan horse. All right. Some things in this world are obvious. Obama was an obvious fool. He didn't know what he was doing. Biden was obviously a puppet. He wasn't running the government. Those things are obvious. Some maybe not so obvious. Bush 1 and 2, we thought were Republican conservatives, but it wasn't as obvious. It's pretty obvious now in hindsight. All right. Bitcoin's not disguised as well as the Bushes were. Bitcoin is an obvious non-factor. It never performed true to its white paper. Its white paper was this new currency, right, that was going to run the world. It was impractical because it didn't function that way from the very beginning. And you can't have the currency of the world be built by somebody that supposedly nobody knows. Okay, first of all, that's a lie. Everybody knows damn well who made Bitcoin. But the problem is that they've passed it off on so many people, and you know, and a lot of I've heard a lot of politicians, especially Democrats, say things like, you know, the American public is stupid. And I took great offense at that, especially during the time that they had passed Obamacare. There's a lot of those people in that cabinet for Obama that made that exact statement. And I remember seeing that, I'm like, you know, how could people say that? But the fact that there are still supporters for that guy, who's an obvious liar, stunning. People who still support Fauci with the COVID thing, stunning. I mean, we've got the proof here, guys. It was a lie. We know that the 2020 election was stolen. It's obvious now. You just got to prosecute if they're going to even do that. I mean, these people are all so compromised. You got to get one set of criminals to prosecute the other set of criminals. But then when they do that, they feel like, oh man, then they're going to come back and get me for the crimes they know I committed. We got a really bad group of people running the government. And that's on both sides, Republican and Democrat. But I think that we've got a little bit more of a shot now with the leadership that we have today, which is why they're pushing for something that is inevitable. We got to change the currency. The US dollar is completely, they've destroyed its value. Nobody wants to buy US treasuries anymore because the dollar is worthless. We have printed it into oblivion. We have abused the privilege of the World Reserve Bridge currency or World Reserve currency. The bridge currency is going to be the digital bridge currency, which is XRP. That's what that is. That's what that X means in XRP. Supranational. It means it belongs to the world. It doesn't belong to one country. That's why ahead of gold, it's XAU. And the same with silver. Those are the X stands for it's supranational. So Now you're going to start hearing people trying to claim, oh, I didn't know. Oh, they fooled me. Oh, I was naive. BS. Nobody is that stupid. They were probably paid to do this, to push it, because it's just too easy, too obvious. All right. You're not going to convince me this guy was that stupid. You're not going to convince me. And there's not just him. There's tons of people like that. And so be careful where you put your money. Make sure you understand the technology and that it makes sense. Don't just follow the crowd, because following the crowd takes you over a cliff sometimes. So let's take a quick look at this. DAI here says, he tried to tell the Bitcoin children for years they'll bring out the tanks and guns before they give up control of the money supply. And that's true. The United States is not going to give up the money supply, even though we do need to wrestle it away, at least elements of it away from the British or from Britain, from the UK, because they've really been the ones that have controlled the financial system, I want to say, since we supposedly won our independence. I got questions about that too, but nonetheless, the system the whole world has lived under has really been the British financial system. The Federal Reserve is not an American entity. It is a privately owned bank, mostly owned by foreign wealthy people, mostly by British foreign wealthy people, but others. The IRS in the United States is nothing more than the publicly funded, you and me pay, for a collection company to make sure that they can come and torment us and pay that bank that doesn't even belong to our country. And for some reason, our representatives back in those days were so insane, they gave the power of printing the American dollar, American, cash supply, to some privately owned bank. And they called it the Federal Reserve, so it sounded governmental, but it's not. That's what happened, guys. It's not an American thing. And I think a lot of the people around the world have a misconception about that. But that's about to change. All right, so all this is changing. We're going to try to create something that's a little more level playing field type thing. But these guys, I guess, to kind of hold on to their audiences, they're going to claim ignorance. So check out what this kid has to say. I'm going to show you another video after this. It's, another person doing the same thing, telling you the truth about Bitcoin. So let's take a quick look at this. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and bookmark. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Until next time.
Adios. I want to say a couple things. One about this idea of the Trojan horse being celebrated as it's being rolled inside the city walls. So this is something that I'm certainly guilty of, having been a terribly naive libertarian in the early Bitcoin days.
BS.
I bought the hype around Bitcoin. I really thought this was this world-changing technology that was going to, disrupt power structures. I had no idea.
BS.
The sophistication of the opponents that we were facing. So the idea that they're like this ragtag group of libertarian idealists are going to create a private money that can't be controlled, and maybe people won't be, forced into paying for wars that they don't support. And we're going to do this with our cool new technology. That's just crazy naive. I think in hindsight, I don't even think they had to work very hard to hijack Bitcoin. I think it was sort of when you consider the types of projects that these people have undertaken, the established power players, the central banks, you're talking about, organizations and groups of people and networks that can topple dictators if they like all over the world. The idea that they're just going to roll over and accept some alternative currency.
It's convenient, right?
It's not really feasible from the beginning. So one thing that I have heard suggested is that maybe part of the reason that Bitcoin was maybe allowed to operate as long as it was out in the open is to get some of the loudest critics on board with this idea of digital currency. So the libertarian idealistic folks here who really don't like CBDCs, they're really skeptical of centralized power. A huge percentage of them have been effectively captured by the Bitcoin narrative, and they think they're going to get rich if they just kind of go.
It was about the money, guys. Nobody's that stupid.
Maybe the price of Bitcoin will keep going up, and they'll make money. So I do think that we're seeing this too with the Genius Act and the Clarity Act. sort of there's this push that like, yeah, we're gonna adopt cryptocurrencies and it's gonna make the world a better place. And meanwhile, the devil's in the details, and it's like accomplishing the opposite.